don't need to tell you that anti-Muslim sentiment is at all-time highs in this country, far, far higher than it was in the immediate aftermath of September 11th. Polls show that 50% of Americans have a negative view towards Islam. 30% of Americans believe that Muslims in this country should be forced to carry special IDs identifying themselves as Muslims.
Let me tell you what's going on over there right now. Make no bones about it. That is pure, unadulterated evil. I have a beautiful daughter. I have a wonderful 19-year-old son who's a United States Marine. As a matter of fact, I know quite a few Marines who will be very happy to help these terrorists to an early meeting in paradise.
Even through 9/11 and that tragic experience that this country went through, we, American Muslims, were not made to feel that we were the enemy. And then something weird happened a couple of years ago. Remember?
On September 11th, they declared war against us.
It's not just that anti-Muslim sentiment is high, it's that it's become disturbingly mainstream, so that entire political parties are now using it to find funding. That an entire news program, a news channel, you know what I'm talking about, has turned it into ratings gold.
May 10th, Jacksonville, Florida, a pipe bomb at the Islamic Center of Northeast Florida. The bomb went off during evening prayers, and it was powerful enough to send shrapnel flying 100 yards. Fortunately, the bomber didn't know where to place it, so the 60 Muslim worshippers were uninjured.
In Brooklyn just a couple of months ago, there was a Bangladeshi man, and he was approached by 3 teens, and they asked him, "Are you Muslim?" And he said, "Yes." And they said, "Go back to your bleeping country." Then they attacked him, and the man was in a coma.
Books like this have become an industry. There's now an industry of writing books against Islam. I don't really want to encourage this by even putting the idea out, but one of the quickest ways to become a best-selling author is just to apostate from Islam and write a horrible book about Muslims or Islam. And suddenly you're on all these talk shows and you become an expert on Islam. I mean, there's people now that are experts on Islam because they wrote a book and they know nothing about Islam. They've never studied, they don't have any background, but this is the condition we're in. And taking people who have apostated from Islam, who've left Islam, and putting them forward as people to attack Islam is a very clever strategy, because you can just let them do the dirty work. So it's very good to use people that create this pattern disruption. Oh, well, if these Muslims don't even like their religion, that must be a bad religion. You see, and that's what they do. So the most recent one is this poor Syrian lady who's come out and attacked Islam.
Just this month, Shabbat was paid $5,000 by the South Dakota Office of Homeland Security to speak to law enforcement on terrorism issues. These so-called experts who teach them are hardly such. No, in fact, they're people that come in and instead tell our police that all of Islam is the devil. And Shabbat is one of the worst examples. So those $5,000 for Shabbat to speak in South Dakota came from a federal grant. That means your tax dollars, my tax dollars, went to a man who lies about his past to spread fear about Islam.
We want to know what you think. Should Muslims be allowed to build their mosques in the neighborhoods of their choosing?
And coming up next, should Puerto Ricans be allowed to lower your property values? Should the Irish be allowed to vote? I'm Diane Sawyer, ABC News. We'll be right back.
I think Zionism and Islamophobia can be used almost interchangeably these days. They're basically one and the same. I can't really tell the difference because all the Zionists are Islamophobes and all the Islamophobes are Zionists. So to me, the coincidence is uncanny.
Yeah, it's funny because polls from the Pew polling organization, which is a reputable polling organization, show American opinion of Muslims at an all-time low, and we're almost 10 years after 9/11. So where is this coming from? It's actually a sustained campaign that began well before 9/11, is that there is a network, an organized network that stretches across continents that has incited this campaign against Muslim citizens of America and which is profiting off of it and has its own network of funders. Well, I mean, this did start out of the pro-Israeli lobbies, I pointed out in my piece.
You see, having done a lot of research into this threat, having scrutinized the details, it has become pretty clear to me that the terrorist threat does not, in fact, exist. At least not in the way US and Western governments would have us believe. I don't like being lied to, and I really don't like seeing the entire human population of this planet being lied to by a handful of government, media, and corporate crooks.
But no, Islam is not a religion of terrorism. It's not a religion that condones terrorism.
Because they don't totally give themselves over to MTV with TV shows telling young girls how cool it is. They have a show about how cool it is to have abortions. Because the Muslims won't give up their cultures and their family and won't give in to the corrupt banking system. They're against the usury and the rest of it. They have to be eradicated. They have to be destroyed because that culture is far superior to this corporatoid death culture. So anything that won't give in to the New World Order is bad.
Ce qui est en train de se passer, c'est que le langage qui est utilisé pour stigmatiser soit les Arabes, soit les musulmans, en général ils sont confondus, ce qui est une connerie, les arguments qui sont choisis, moi, me rappellent beaucoup les arguments qui étaient choisis avant pour stigmatiser les Juifs. La figure de la haï maintenant, c'est le musulman et l'arabe avec les mêmes arguments. Ces gens-là ne sont pas français, c'est ce qu'on disait des Juifs à certaines années. Le même langage est utilisé. Les Juifs, là, les gens n'osent plus se lâcher quand même. Voilà, au moins, on a gagné ça. Mais sur les musulmans et les arabes, ça y va. Jamais ils ne seront assez français. Il faudrait qu'ils fassent la preuve et la preuve et la preuve. Et on peut faire un décalque. Vous pouvez prendre des textes de l'époque et des textes maintenant. C'est la même terminologie. Et moi, je trouve ça très inquiétant. Mais vraiment.
So Sarah Palin has called the Ground Zero Islamic Community Center a stab in the heart, borrowing language that Hitler used after World War I about Jews in Germany, stabbing Germany in the back. I don't think she meant to borrow it, but it really reminds me of that.
How is Israel going to launch this big war and yet get away from being perceived by the whole of humanity as the aggressor, blatant aggression. You have to come with a good strategy. This is planning. This is strategy. This is not happening by accident.
And the Third World War would be triggered out of the Middle East, involving Israel as the trigger, and would bring about the final global conflict.